we must bring it to you. And many of you may not even heard of such a thing, ethical blindness. But to more talk about the thing, we have got a very high-profile distinguished panels. Before that, let me briefly tell you all the people who are joined on different mode of our social media portals, Zoom. You can share your question in the chat, and others who are joined YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and also Voice of MMA. Please type your question. There's a number on your screen. Send your questions, and we'll collect all the questions and place it before the distinguished panel to respond to all your questions. Request you to really focus your questions relating to the theme of the discussion rather than various other aspects related to the company or relating to the other thing. I don't. You can have a lot of issues with the organizations and I think those questions could be avoided. The response will be only to the theme what we are discussing this evening. Before I will, before I will proceed further, let me briefly take 2-3 minutes to tell you what exactly is happening in MMA if you're missed in the inbox so that you don't miss these high-profile events, what we are bringing it to you exclusively for your viewing. On Tuesday, the 15th of Feb, we have an event on leadership Shastra lessons from Indian history because we can learn quite a bit. And we got some outstanding panel, Pradeep Chakravarti, Sheshai, Sheshai, Vice Chairman of Indija Group, Venki Rajagopal, Managing Director of Indian Terrain, and Mr. S.L. Narayan, and Group Chief Financial Officer of Sun Group. Not to be missed, this is happening live at MMA Management Center. Then on the 17th, we have another new initiative. We are doing an event exclusively in Tamil because we have large number of Tamil entrepreneurs from around different part of Tamil Nadu and Puducherry in national level. We thought every month we are going to bring in some 2 outstanding Tamil programs, which will be spoken in Tamil by outstanding scholars on different management subjects. And first one is success story, how it was done by Kalai Mamani, VKT Balan. He's a chairman and managing director of Madras Travels, and he has over some million people he's moved in spite of so many things. How we built up his entrepreneurial journey is going to be sharing that. And please do this again happening live at MMA Management Center. Do come and join, interact with some of the outstanding achievers, entrepreneurs, share their insights. Friday the 18th Feb, we have an event on Read and Grow, which is our popular program. This time we have an event on Lady, You Are the Boss. We have again outstanding panelists, Sangeeta Sumesh Shamran, Ratnabel Rajan. He is a regional HR head of Asia from Oil Corporation. Karpagam is the managing director of finance and accounting and operations from Accenture Solutions. Then we have on Saturday 19th, we have a toolbox for emotional coping. Again, very relevant program for this year. We are doing it under the Women Business Forum, where Dr. Pritika Chari will be talking. Pritika Chari is she is the only first woman to do both Master of Surgery as well as neurophysician. Then we have Maithili Chandrasekhar, brand consultant, will be leading the conversation. Then we have again on the 22nd, we have again a Tamil program this month, Art of Management by Pulavar Indran, and he's going to be talking about Art of Management. Again, an outstanding reader, and is again Shakya Academy Awards winner. Then on the 24th of Feb, we have Overcoming Personal Challenges for Professional Growth. Again, Meena Chabria, she'll be head of Associate Vice President of PVR Cinema, which runs more than 1,000 screens. She'll be talking to us. So like that, we have almost finalized program till the end of thing. One event only I'll tell them, which is not to be missed again for many corporates, discussion on code of wages and its implications on employees, and perspective. Because code of wages to be implemented from April 22, and it's a very important subject. They're bringing some outstanding thought leaders to come and speak to you. And so that if you have missed in your inbox, please do log in and join us and enrich yourself on some of the latest thing what we are bringing it for you. Coming to today's event, this fireside chat and discussion on ethical blindness, why ethical awareness is the bedrock of success and sustainability. Some of you were there already as a prelude to the discussion, what the panel is discussing, how passionate they are about ethical issues. You have already heard from them and you're going to hear more from them. And we have an outstanding panelist, and also we have the executive director of Indian Oil Corporation joined us from Mumbai. So he's from Mumbai, Chennai. You were traveling. He was kind enough to join us from Mumbai. He'll be delivering the opening remarks. Now, let me have the privilege of introducing Mr. Jayadevan, Executive Director of Unstate Head of Tamil Nadu and Puducherry Indian Oil Corporation. Jayadevan is currently the Executive Director in Indian Oil, Tamil Nadu and Puducherry. Besides the state head, Indian Oil, Jayadevan would also be functioning as a state-level coordinator for oil industry. And Jayadevan has over 3 decades of extensive experience in oil, primary LPG, and its functional vertical operations. His critical work of LPG and direct benefit transfer in targeting subsidy was used as a key source by the task force by the Government of India And you was also a brand ambassador for other based direct subsidiary, which is working so beautifully now. He was recognized by the Prime Minister of India, other Excellence Award for his contribution. He has won several e-governance awards for his contribution creating system. And prior to the posting, Jayadevan was heading the Chairman Secretariat Indian Oil Corporation Office, New Delhi. One more thing about the thing, Jayadevan is also a member of the MMA Managing Committee. Is part of the very actively involved in our MMA activities. Very warm welcome to Jayadevan. May now request Mr. Jayadevan to please deliver the opening remarks. Over to you, Mr. Jayadevan.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay Kumar. Respected Professor Ganesh, Madam Sarada, and my colleague, Mr. Menon, and my dear friends who all have joined through the video conference, and then a great day ahead or a great time ahead for us to discuss about ethics. It's a great forum. MMA has given us a great platform for discussing topics which are of relevance and also which would take organizations and management in a new path forward, and also to have much more meaningful business processes in the days to come. I will not go and then give a very, very detailed talk on ethics. What I would like to just touch upon, because I'm pretty sure regarding the ethical framework and the structure which we have created in our organization, Mr. Menon would be talking to you in detail. But what I would like to just touch upon is, why did we as a public sector organization have gone into this journey and started creating it, and also to create a good awareness about ethics in our organization. As we all know, ethics is related to the moral and then physical values. At the same time, what I have realized during a formal education process or during my tenure in this organization is, when we all have learned in our primary classes, or even to that extent in our engineering classes, that we can clearly distinguish what is right and wrong. In the classes, when you make an answer, give an answer, teacher is able to really give you the feedback that whether your answer is right or wrong. This was the case when I studied in my college and also in the engineering college. This is very, very clear for me. There is something which commonly all of us can understand and all of us can agree what is right and what is wrong when we try to learn science. But when I went to management classes, there was a dilemma, especially when we learn or when we try to understand case studies. Many a times we prepare case studies, go and start presenting, and others also start reacting. You tend to get a feeling that some of my rights are wrongs of someone else. And somebody else will try to tell you something which you feel were not right. So the dilemma has started growing, at least in my mind, to a great extent. Why this sort of a right and wrong, what otherwise, which was very clear in my mind, is slowly getting diluted over a period of time. One of the answers which I could find is to have an ethical headlamp to look at issues. The moment you start looking at issues with an ethical headlamp, probably you are able to come to much more agreement in many of those right and wrong, and also all of us would be able to go forward in a similar decision-making process, which is beneficial for the organization many a times in the long term. And I'm pretty sure that even in a short term, many of those decisions go well moment we tend to have an understanding or a real foundation of ethics. And I do consider ethics as a real cementing factor for building the structure of an organization and to take that organizational structure really stable for a very, very long time. For a public sector organization, to start something new like this itself was really a challenging one. But I'm pretty sure that it's this part, especially in the Tamil Nadu, we have been able to really get over that initial traction, and we have moved forward. Now our next process is to take it across the company in other parts of the country as well. So having learned that the value of ethics in terms of target setting, planning, and also execution and implementing, I also would like to just tell you there are 2-3 other reasons why I believe that ethics is very, very important in the current context. One, of course, is the transparency which is getting created because of the technology. When technology is really coming into our lives in a big way, anything and everything what we are doing is being seen by the world. When we are connecting to the internet, or when we are even sending some messages to others, it's always being viewed by somebody else with or without our knowledge. When that happens, if you do not have a consistent behavior based on certain moral values, it's very, very easy for someone else to find out the gaps in your behavior, inconsistency in your behavior, and also judge you based on that. So to that extent, technology which is creating transparency is compelling us to become more ethical. Second is related to the communication which is happening across the country. Even as an organization, different parts, different stakeholders within the organization is communicating through various media, including the social media, definitely. You must have come across a recent case last week in which a dealer of a world MNC has talked about a neighboring country's behavior in certain parts of that country. When that has come up, ultimately the parent company has to apologize to the neighboring country for really one of their dealers tweeting about that country. So unless you have a real code of conduct or have a broad understanding about the ethics within the organization, these things can always get into the public media and also to really tarnish the image of the organization. So communication is also extremely important, and a coherent communication, an ethical way of communicating is quite relevant in today's context. Third part is related to startups. I know many of you must be getting into startup. These days, startup scaling up, they call it as blitz scaling. Moment the startup is created and when you have some venture capitalists coming and then investing, the next phase is really a quite fast scaling up of your operation. If you have not really cemented your foundation in ethics, this blitz scaling can actually amplify the unethicality in your organization because you don't have a control over the scaling up of your operations. So we need to have an ethical groundwork or a foundation for you when you start your organization, and then that gets scaled up. So these are the fundamentally the reasons which I thought that we have to, as an organization, we have to have a great framework of ethics, and then we have to build our organizational structures, having this at the back of us to when we move forward. In fact, as an organization, Indian Oil has got ethics as one of its cornerstones when we have our vision. If you have gone through Indian Oil's vision, it is a hexagonal vision. It's actually a dynamic vision which you can actually see. If you can go through and then see it in the internet, we have ethics as one of its cornerstones. We continue to communicate and continue to believe and commit our commitment towards ethics to all our employees and stakeholders. You will get to know more about it in Mr. Menon's talk today. And thank you very much, Mr. Vijay Kumar, for giving me an opportunity to be here talking to all the youngsters and others who are connected over web. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jayadevan, for joining us from Mumbai and sharing your insights and setting the context. And what we really like is the ethical headlamps, very, very important thing. Thank you so much. Thank you once again. Now, I will have the privilege of introducing our distinguished speakers for this evening and also the distinguished moderator. And thereafter, Professor Ganesh, moderator, will take it on and conduct the whole thing. And if you have any questions, as I requested earlier, please share your questions. And we, in the interest of the time, we'll only pick up the questions which are relevant, which comes to us through the chat box and also other sources. Let me have the privilege of introducing Dr. Ramachandra Menon. He is an ethical coordinator at Indian Oil Corporation, and he has over 35 years of experience. He joined PhD at the age of 54, and he was also co-student, as he mentioned such a while ago, along with his son, IIT Madras. That clearly shows how much his love for research. The theme of the thesis was centered around ethics and executive social responsibility. Won the Institute Research Award from IIT Madras for outstanding research, and he is also an ethics coordinator for IOC in Tamil Nadu, Puducherry, and driving several novel ethics initiatives and trained over 1,000 executives in the last 1 year in ethics. Very warm welcome to you, Menon. We are eagerly looking forward to hearing you. Let me have the privilege of introducing our own Sarada Jagan. Sarada Jagan, not new to MMA. She's been part of the committee for a very long, well-wisher of MMA. Sarada Jagan is the managing director of HR Corporate Services, the Sanmar Group Corporate Division. After PG in Mathematics, University of Madras, started her career as a teacher. Then after 4 years, joined IIM Ahmedabad after marriage to Mr. Jagan. Then from campus, I joined leading management consulting firm and was with them for more than 7 years. After that, he moved to industry where he handled more most commercial and HR functions. Working with the Sanmar Group for the last 22 years. The Sanmar Group is a multinational US $1 billion conglomerate, and currently I have oversight responsibility of human resources. And she is very passionate. She also very closely involved in formulation of ethics policies and processes of the group from the initial stages in 2008. And over, she also heads the ethics committee and many more initiatives of the organization. Passionate about studying human behavior, trained teacher and reading and music, and she has got number of awards. The most is Indra Super Achiever Award, and many more there. And wish you many more awards to you, madam. And very warm welcome to you, Mrs. Jagan. It's indeed a privilege to have you with us this evening. Let me have the privilege of introducing our own L S Ganesh. L S Ganesh, again, not new to MMA. He's our mentor, well-wisher of MMA. L S Ganesh, popularly known as LSG, B Honors Mechanical Engineering from BITS Pilani, and MTech Applied Mechanics from and a merit prize from PhD IIT Madras, and he worked as an associate fellow of NIEPA New Delhi during 1984-86, assistant professor of IIM Bangalore from 86-87. He has served as the head of the department during the 2004-8 and as the dean of institute during 2011-14, in addition to fulfilling several other official institutional responsibilities. LSG has been conferred the Distinguished Fellow Award of the Project Management Institute of India and Distinguished Professor Award of the Computer Society of India. It's also been conferred Distinguished Alumnus Award by the BITS Pilani and also by IIT Madras Alumni Association. Very warm welcome to Mr. Ganesh, and you know we have very, very high-profile panel here discussing on this important theme. Over to you, Mr. Ganesh, to take it forward. Mr. Ganesh.
Thank you, Group Captain Vijay Kumar, and thank you, Mr. Jayadevan, for that introductory note. So in this panel discussion, I will share some initial thoughts, the concepts related to ethics. But one of the things I have found about ethics is that it's defined by what it is not rather than by what it is. It's easier to define what is not ethical, you know. And in fact, you will find that all our legal systems are oriented towards what is not legal, and the actions are taken on what is not legal. You know, similarly, ethics. There's also a subtle difference. Theoretically, it's for the general benefit of everybody. There is a subtle difference between morals and ethics. Okay, many great scholars have pointed out that when we use the word morals, we bring in the concept of God and Mother Nature inside. Okay. So when we talk of morals, that subtle difference comes in. Whereas when we talk of ethics, we normally talk of the context of human society. Okay. And here there is a frame which we should be aware of. There are 4 contexts of life for every human being. The first context is me alone. And obviously ethical behavior is demanded even when you are alone, because ethics sits in your thoughts, words, and your actions. You know, these are the 3 states of action of a human being. Your thinking, your speaking, and your action, physical action. Your thoughts, words, and actions must be ethical. Is it possible for somebody to have unethical thoughts? Of course, yes. Why not? The point is, it's possible that many of those people who have unethical thoughts may not transform them into words and actions. That might be a huge majority, which is all right. I mean, that's definitely acceptable, because everybody knows the truth. No human being can stop the rise of a thought in his or her mind. That's not possible. But every human being has been given sufficient sense to observe what's happening and decide whether to continue with the thought or not. I hope you are very clear about this. So if you obviously wish to continue or dwell in an unethical thought, that's where the trigger starts for unethical, behavior. So me alone. The second context of life is me in my family. I am with my family, my relatives, my neighbors and friends, and so on. Okay. The point is, you are dealing with people whom you know and they also know you. The third context is me at work. I am with my colleagues, with my subordinates, with my peers, with my supply chain partners. So there is an official stamp of what we are doing, our work. Okay. So me at work. The fourth context is very interesting, me in public. Okay. In fact, right now I am virtually in public. Okay. We are all virtually in public. Me in public. I am with people whom I don't know. I don't even know who is watching me, who's not watching me. I may be watched. Okay. But my behavior is absolutely important, because we are all given that responsibility of setting examples for many people, especially younger people. So these four contexts are valuable for understanding ethics, because ethics can be violated in these four contexts. Okay. Then comes the second frame. There is something called personal ethics, which deals with the individual. Then there is something called interpersonal ethics, which deals with transactions between two or more people. And then there is something called systemic ethics. So people can violate personal ethics, interpersonal ethics, or systemic ethics. Okay. So systemic ethics means you are violating public rules and regulations and public order. So there we are talking of violation of systemic ethics. So this is the basic frame we are talking of. And I'm very happy that Dr. Ramachandran is here today to speak about the topic of ethical blindness. Actually, ethical blindness seems to be a very widespread phenomenon in many places, because it seems that many people are not aware of the basic tenets of ethics. So everything goes, this is the thing. They use a fantastic saying, all is fair in love and war. And they extend love or war, saying entire life is nothing but love and war. Therefore, all I do is fair in my life. It's a very funny kind of a stance that many people take. But we must understand that we have to be very careful. And I'm sure you will also learn something. There are three types of unethical behavior. I'll close with this. The first is called making an error. The second is called making a mistake. And the third is committing a sin. So you have to be very, very clear where you are. So you have to evaluate yourself. Am I committing an error? Am I committing a mistake? Or am I committing a sin? Okay. And this distinction can be had from your intention, which only you can judge. Nobody else can judge your intention. You are the master of your intentions and the knowledge you possess in a context. So given these two, it is not difficult to understand whether an action is ethical or unethical. I can only tell you this much at an abstract level for now. But we'll move over to Dr. Ramachandran to receive his inputs regarding ethics and what he feels as a scholar of ethics. He has studied ethics in the corporate context, so mostly me at work. Okay. Over to you, Ramachandran, Dr. Ramachandran. Very, very happy to see you. I'm very proud also. He is the winner of the Institute Research Award from IIT Madras. He's obviously done some fantastic work to have got that award.
That also a comparatively old age, I think.
Yeah, I know your son was also there. You set an example. That's fantastic, Ramachandran. Go ahead, Ramachandran. Please go ahead.
Yeah, all right. So thank you, sir. And before I start, I should deeply appreciate MMA and especially Group Captain Vijay Kumar for giving us this wonderful opportunity to discuss an interesting subject. This business ethical blindness is an emerging business, but as far as I'm concerned, the destruction which is caused by ethical blindness is much more than normal corruption. There's an increasing requirement by our managers and executives to have a focus. So I'm really thankful, and especially in the presence of doyens like Professor Ganesh and Sarada Madam. And also I'm very grateful for my ethical leader, Mr. Jayadevan, who had been giving a lot of motivation as to, it's not easy to implement something ethical where there are a lot of unionism and all these things, but we went through, and I can gladly say that we have been successful to a great extent. So that's the background. I'll just share my presentation now. All right. So this is the subject what we are going to discuss. And before I start, the subject, I just want to conduct a small poll. So this poll is about how do you rate your ethicality in comparison with others in your organization? Do you feel yourself above average, or below average? You have just 30 seconds flat to answer this poll, and this is completely anonymous, so you don't need to worry what sort of result is going to come. You may quickly answer. We have only 4 participants right now. All of you answer if it is possible. I hope everybody can see the poll. Only just 4 numbers.
Probably the others don't know what to say because of what you
Is there
said.
any
No?
technical difficulties?
Yeah.
All right, and then I'll stop it because at least we should get the desired result. But anyway, the 4 numbers, now we have, it's coming, right. There are 12 participants, 14, 15, 19. Another 10 seconds, we are going to close. All right, we have 32 participants, and I am going to close now. And this is the result I wanted to show. 50% of the people believe themselves to be above average in ethicality. Average is 47%, and none of you thought that you are below average. It's a definite skew towards you believing yourself towards higher ethicality. And this is common result I find everywhere. I mean, I would have done some 50 surveys like this on similar terms. Can you believe it? I did not get a single participant who said that my ethicality is below average. Not a single one. So this happens as per the researchers, social scientists, because we tend to overestimate our ethicality. We tend to believe that we have been ethical in the past. We tend to believe that we will be ethical in the future. And there comes our own ethical blindness. We are not able to see our own unethicality. Other people can see, but we can't see it. And therefore, this ethical blindness is common among executives. So this is what I just wanted to impress upon you, to give a first impression what is the extent of ethical blindness. So I'll take a relevant quote here. Good managers often make unethical decisions and don't even know about it. It's a very famous quote from HBR. And this is reflecting ethical blindness, and this is what we are going to speak about in the next 20-25 minutes. So what I'm going to do is, I'll give 3 interesting anecdotes, and then I will go to some of those psychological processes which goes to unethical ethical blindness, and then we will move on to what actions we at Indian Oil are doing to confront this ethical blindness, so that there's a lot of interesting discussion can happen. These 3 anecdotes. First one, I'll take up the Wells Fargo case. Many of you would have heard of Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo was the number 2 largest bank of the world in 2000, when Jim Collins wrote that very famous book about 10 greatest organizations. Wells Fargo was one. In 2015, there was a very damning article in the Los Angeles Times which said over 1.5 million unauthorized accounts were created by the sales executives of Wells Fargo with fraudulent signature of customers, the second largest bank. And why did they do so? Because the retail banking head, Carrie Tolstead, was very strict about targets. She gave stress target of the number of accounts to be created by the customers, because that actually is a reflection of the share price. And otherwise, if they are not able to do it, then she humiliated those people, the sales executives, and they did it. And when this blew up, Wells Fargo, there was a congressional inquiry. Wells Fargo was fined for $185 million. Both CEO John Stumpf and the Carrie Tolstead, the retail banking head, had to resign, foregoing their severance packages. The question is, are those executives intentionally unethical? No. In fact, John Stumpf, the CEO, was adjudged the best banker of the world by the Morningstar magazine a year before this scandal, 2014. And Carrie Tolstead was adjudged the 37th most powerful women in the world by Fortune magazine. They are very efficient people, but the targets, because of the targets, occupation, the mind occupying with the targets, made them unaware of the ethical implications of their action, and that is ethical blindness. Let us move on to another interesting case. Most of you would have heard of the horrific tragedy of NASA Space Shuttle Challenger. At that time, Morton Theokold was the consultant to NASA. I will not go much detail because this is, first of all, there's a time constraint, and these are also available in internet. So NASA, Morton Theokold said a day before the launch that suggested to NASA, don't do the launch here because they fear that there is a faulty component which can cause problems. Now, NASA at that time was going through a difficult time, public pressure and political pressure. They were supposed to do some 50 launches a year, and they're hardly able to do 3. Those pressures, timelines worked on those NASA managers, and they somehow convinced Morton Thiokol not to raise that objections. Some sort of groupthink came in, and they finally unanimously agreed to launch it. And you know what has happened. Were the managers of NASA were unintentionally unethical? No. They're good guys. But their cognitive space, their mind was fully occupied by those timelines, the stiff timeline, that there was no space for moral evaluation, unfortunately. There was no space. And you know what is the effect? NASA actually never recovered from that the catastrophe. Nor Wells Fargo recovered. Now they are the 11th or 12th largest bank. From second, it has fallen down. The third one is a very commonly discussed case, fourth window in business ethics classes. Many of you would be knowing about it. At that time, Lee Iacocca, the famous management guru, there's a book by Lee Iacocca, very famous book, I forgot the name. He was the chairman of Ford, and he gave a very stiff target to the Ford engineers. You really make a $2,000 car. Why? Because Japanese small cars were flooding the market, and they had to have a competition. And the engineers worked hard, very efficiently, and they produced the car in the record time, not costing more than 2,000 pounds. But during that process, they ignored some of those very safety aspects which could have prevented accident. And one of that factor, safety mechanism, would have only cost $11. But then it would have crossed the red line of 2,000. And that accident started to happen. Accidents were terrible. All those people burned to death once the accident happened because of that incident. And then the management had to take a decision whether to recall the cars or not. Just like we normally do in such situations. They did a cost-benefit analysis. Listen, they did a cost-benefit analysis whether to recall these cars or not. If they do recall and fit this $11 mechanism and make cars safer, they estimated that it's $137.5 million. If they don't do it, suppose some deaths to happen, and what is going to be the cost? They calculated the cost of litigation, the cost of funerals, the cost of sundry expenditure, and the cost of pain also, pain. They calculated. Still, they found that it is much, much cheaper. And so they did not recall initially. Accidents start to happen. Images of those people, burned up people, came in newspapers. There was tremendous pressure that to stop production, withdraw all the cars, and the Ford window disappeared from the face of the earth. Were the engineers of Ford intentionally unethical? No. They were just efficient. But then it brought down a part of the organization due to the ethical guidelines. I'll buttress this point by 3 quotes from those industries. The first one is from Johnston, the CEO. He wrote, I really feel for Carrie and her team. Carrie is Carrie Tolston. We do such a good job in the area. I will fight this one to the finish. This is when the event, the Los Angeles report, blew upon his face. He was trying to justify his executives being blind to the unethicality of such a vast nature. Second, from NASA, the program manager Mulloy, he said, when Morton Thiokol initially said, let us postpone the launch, oh my God, Thiokol, when do you want to be launched? Next April. Because if you miss the window now, then the next window for launch is after a few months. So what does it show? It shows that his cognitive space was filled with timelines, And there was little moral evaluation. What is going to happen in front of school children if that thing blows up in space? There was no moral evaluation. The third one is from Ford, Dennis Joya. He was the recall coordinator when this accident started to happen. Dennis Joya finally quit in disgust, and he wrote, "After I left Ford, I now argue and teach that Ford had an ethical obligation to recall. But while I was there, I perceived no strong obligation to recall. And I remember no strong ethical overtones to the case whatsoever. In simple language, I was ethically blind." So how the stretch targets can cause lot of unethical behavior unintentionally. This is one instance. Let us now move on to something else. And here I'm going to talk about the excessive obedience to authority and the power and the role we play. And in this case, I am going to describe the Milgram experiment and the Stanford Prison experiment. Most of the people who are done management will be knowing about this experiment. In the Milgram experiment, Professor Stanley Milgram, he was investigating how obedience to authority leads to unethical behavior. Without going much details into the experimental process, he assigned some participants as teachers and some participants as learners. Teachers are supposed to put electric shock to the learners if they don't learn enough. And that progressively increased from 15 volt to 450 volt. Actually, no voltage shock was applied, but the teacher did not know that. They believed that they are applying electric shock. So Professor Milgram asked before they started the experiment to all the teachers, 450 volt, are you willing to apply for this experiment? All of them said no. But then as the experiment progressed and Professor Stanley Milgram gave very authoritative instructions, do it, do it. 65% of them applied 450 volt. You know, it's fatter, 40 volt, fatter. 100% of them applied 300 volt. There was no conversion. They could have even 35% quit. 65% did not quit because of the magnetic power of authority. And this is especially true for us Indian conditions and Asian conditions, because we have a high, steep hierarchy, isn't it? From the very beginning, we respect individuals, we respect elders, teachers, everybody. We touch their feet, and therefore there is a innate process which makes us excessive obedient to authority, and that can cause us. I don't know whether there are actually any whistleblowers compared to this. There are hardly any. Moving on to the Stanford Prison experiment, it was conducted by Professor Zimbardo in the Stanford University lab. Again, I will not go much details. He segregated participants as prisoners and prison guards to understand their behavior. It was supposed to be a 14-day experiment. He had to stop that experiment on the 6th day because these random participants taken using a public advertisement, they started to become abusive to the prisoners. Somehow that power, it engulfed them. And without that awareness, they started abusing. Somebody had mental breakdown, some of those prisoners. Finally, they had to stop. Reason? The context of power, the context of role. These are important aspects which you can make ethically blind in any organization. The third one I want to talk about, the toxic organization culture. When the organization culture is only based on the bottom line mentality, increase profit whatever cost, without looking at the sustainability of the society. In such cases, what happens? In such cases, this toxic organization culture, the pressures of the organization, make things banal, evil banal. Banality of evil is a very famous phrase used by the philosopher Hannah Arendt, talking about a very Nazi criminal philosopher Adolf Eichmann. So when there's a toxic organization culture, taking some bribe, giving some bribe is of no consequence. It's thoughtlessness. I mean, it does not come into your mind. You engage yourself. Cognitive disengagement happens. And this can also cause ethical blindness. And these are all questions which are very relevant to all the organizations here. All right. Moving on to what mechanisms can cause, psychological mechanisms can cause ethical blindness. And I'll just say a couple of them. One is the use of euphemisms. Euphemism is a use of nice word for a bad deed. For example, when I tell my subordinate, you go and bribe somebody, government authority, to get that approval. When I say bribe, immediately moral emotions come into mind. Shame, regret. So these moral emotions are actually stumbling blocks for our unethical behavior. So when we convert them as good words, gift, you go and give to that fellow, give a gift to that fellow, we suppress those moral emotions and we are affected by bounded ethicality. Ethical numbing is when if you are in an organization or in a location, in an operational unit, but there is a lot of unethicality going, everybody is taking bribe or something like that. Even if your character is of utmost straightforwardness, the integrity is highest order, you get affected by it. And after some time, you get numb. Just like when you're going to the Arctic region, your sensitivity is lost, isn't it? So they get affected. And one more, I say the slippery slope. Slippery slope, all big thieves start with the small acts. Maybe taking from a stationery, from office stationery home. And slowly, incrementally, it increases. Our mind does not have the capability to understand that incremental increase. And therefore, you don't know when you're falling into deep, the depth of unethicality. These are some of the, there are many. I just wanted to create some interest in you so that we can further discuss it at some other time, but these are very important things. Another thing is our implicit biases. Implicit biases, one example is implicit biases that we are not actually aware of. We are not aware of. It is deep rooted. For example, in-group bias or implicit bias. So when you have implicit bias, in-group bias, you tend to favor people from your same group, maybe from the same region or same caste or same religion. You tend to prefer them unconsciously. By doing that, favoring them, you are also disfavoring the out group, and therefore it causes ethical blindness. There are others. I just wanted to tell this thing. There are several causes of like this implicit biases. Another factor is the moral disengagement. In the case of moral disengagement, initially we know that we are unethical, but then we disengage. One example is displacement of responsibility. Suppose I give a target to my subordinate. It's a stretch target I give to subordinate, and I give a time frame. He understands that it is impractical. It's not viable. So either he manipulates the data to give a good performance, show a good performance, or he achieved the target using unfair means, unethical means. Then he will think, this is not my fault. That stupid fellow gave me something unviable. How am I being responsible for this? And therefore, he rationalized his action and becomes immune. Some sort of motivated blindness that he becomes immune to it, and it also leads to it. Some of them I just wanted to mention here previously. Okay. Now, going from this, what are the experiences? What are things we do? I'll just take 5 minutes here. In Indian Oil, see, we have a full-fledged vigilance department, ethics codes, code of conduct. We have our vigilance department is represented at the board level. All these things, strong foundations are there. But what we have done is moving beyond all those things. So, ethics circle, state ethics committee formed by senior officers here. We plan, initiate, and monitor various ethical initiatives for improving the ethics culture. That is the major point, the top of the pyramid. And the SEC reports to the state head, Mr Jayadevan here. So there's a support from the top management to do this activity. That is very important. And second is below the ethics committee, we have created ethics circle. If you have heard of quality circle in the early Japanese philosophy, quality circle is similar to that. Ethics circle are created in all operational units, a mixture of officers and staff. Their primary function is they meet regularly. Their primary function is to understand, are there any ethical, unethical, ethical infractions happening here? If so, what actions can be driven? Discuss it, suggest it. That's one part. Avoiding harm. Second aspect, not only avoiding harm is sufficient, creating good is also sufficient. So for that, they also plan many socially responsible projects, volunteerism, like blood donation camp or tree plantation projects, or collecting clothes and giving for charity, all this. So what we expect is that because of that positive action, their energy is used for a positive purpose. They diverted towards a positive purpose. It improves the ethical surrounding, the ethical climate of the organization. This we have done, and it is giving us tremendous results. Another is the ethics training. Ethics training we have conducted within Tamil Nadu. I'm only talking about ethics training we have conducted for Tamil Nadu for all the foreign executives. I have trained also outside Tamil Nadu, but within Tamil Nadu, we have trained all the executives on business ethics, including ethical blindness. We have trained all staff members on ethics and social responsibility. They create a solid foundation on which we can build on. We have also created an anonymous ethical feedback mechanism. So we have a formal mechanism through vigilance, corrupt practices they can report, but many of people may not be reporting it because of some fear of retribution, and they don't want to come outside. So this mechanism allows them to give they get feedback anonymously through. We have given a web link at our website, and anybody can do this, and any sort of unethical behavior, including misreporting of data, sexual harassment, personal biases, anything can be reported. And then we have a set protocol how to handle all these cases. The state ethics committee goes through it and recommend the action, and then submit a recommendation to the state head. We also wanted to increase the salience of ethics in the organization. So for that, we increase. We have frequently issue ethics broadcast, so that it goes to all the employees, so that there is always something which is salient in their mind, that is ethics when making a decision making. All it is exhibited in all the cabins. We have also fixed posters in all operational units about social responsibility, the importance of sustainability, and about ethics. The purpose is, when this is salient, earlier we used to have Mahatma Gandhi in all government offices. Purpose is to increase the salience. Same thing we are repeating, but at a much larger scale, so that ethicality and sustainability and social responsibility are in the back of the mind of all the employees. That was very important. So this is coming to my presentation, short presentation. I just use this opportunity with the permission of MMA to suggest that we should have a permanent mechanism, a body which should, in which the industry and academicians should come together. Even students should come together, and it's a good forum. There is no such forum as I'm concerned in India, and India is a land of Buddha and Mahatma Gandhi. I don't know why you're not taken this initiative. I think we should take an initiative, and then we can conduct ethics conferences frequently. We can conduct ethics workshop, and exchanging good practices. Now I heard from Sarada Jagan Madam some of those good practices. I mean, it also ignites my curiosity. So it's a high time that we have to have this. I request the August Forum to do such a thing. And I'll finish this with this famous quote from Mahatma Gandhi: "Be the change you want to see in the world." And I hope that all of us will come together and initiate that change. Thank you, sir. So this is the short presentation I could make. I want Professor LSG wanted me to have a trailer, not a full film. So this is the best I could do. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Ramchandran. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I think that was a really good trailer. I can tell you that much.
Okay.
And I hope all the participants would love to see the whole movie later, because this is a fantastic thing, because it bothers all of us. This subject is so important for us. Ultimately, the question is, can you go to sleep with a clean conscience every day? And can you look back on your life and say, I've lived a good life? These are very important questions. And we must really thank Dr. Ramchandran for the inputs. I mean, very good set of inputs, starting with the mistakes made by very leading people in industry and also in the government, in the R&D, literally NASA and all. It's a very sad case, what happened. And as he was pointing out, a very interesting thing is, very difficult to say whether they did it intentionally or not. It's very, very tragic. Sometimes these are mistakes. You don't know that they are done. Obviously, we all know that it's unintentional, but the consequences are tragic. And sometimes this happens even in the way parents bring up children. I've come across a handful of cases where it's clear that the children want to stay away from the parents for whatever reasons. The parents, with all the love, they end up actually messing up the maturity of the child. So there are now, is it ethical or unethical? We don't know. It takes years to find out what has happened. I mean, it is with great love that they do the damage. That's the tragic part. Anyway, thank you. And I wanted to check something with you. We'll spend a few minutes on this, Ramchandran.
Yeah.
Your own questions that you posed. What is your own feeling about the distribution of above average, average, and below average? What is your observation across Indian industry? I mean, having sunk your teeth into this topic, my question is more of a general question, so that as a person who has immersed himself in this, you'll be able to make some overall observations. Where do you feel professionals in Indian industry are?
All right. So you see, I did this. This poll is not of mine. It is been done by others, very famous researchers. But the point is, I conducted the polls maybe around 10, 15 at least time. In none of these cases, there was no negative. There could be two factors. One is that there is always some social responsibility bias, which makes you don't want to show. But then we told them very clearly, this anonymous, whatever you give is not a problem. In comparison, I just want to did a further research. In some cases, we did not have time here, or I would have done the same thing here. Immediately after this poll, I also asked them, how do you consider yourself, your tallness? Is it average, below average, or above average? And we did not get, we got an almost normal distribution. Of course, there was some bias that people want to project themselves as tall, but there were many who said that no, I'm not tall, I'm short. compared to this, here what we are seeing is only there is no below average. So my strong feeling, and which is supported by research, is that we tend to believe that we are really ethical. I mean, and when the same question is asked about others, we say that no, they are not ethical. That we have some inherent feeling, some sort of self-serving bias. And that is because we don't see sometimes that what unethicality they are doing. We thought it's all right. So I think that is the reason actually I wanted to bring that.
Correct. I think people, all of us have a way of excusing ourselves, in a very comfortable manner. Basically. And the other thing is, the other question, Ramchandran, is to what extent have you observed leaders being sensitive to ethical issues in their company? See, today, one dimension I have seen, at least in many cases, especially because of court action and so on, what has happened in our country, ethical behavior to the opposite sex is now getting well codified in many companies and organizations, So there are very good codes that have been evolved over time and so on. But overall, what do you observe in terms of leaders wanting to openly and transparently, shred ethical issues? And that needs a lot of courage. What is your own observation?
Right. So I just, I'll try to give this example of Mr. Jayadevan, not that because he's stated here, he's a good friend of me also. I can even tell bad things about him, that much relevance I have. There are people like him. I've seen people like him in this organization. In fact, one of the person from Gujarat, the state of Gujarat, he wanted to also come in. There were great people like him who can really improve the ethical culture within the organization. But at the same time, I have also seen other sets of people who are affected by Machiavellianism, who are actually psychopathic leadership, who only go after power, and even narcissistic leadership. All these dark triads of leadership. This also has a counterbalancing influence, so that it's only question of who succeeds, whether the Pandavas succeed or the Kauravas succeed. That sort of thing is the question. So our effort should be to support those Pandavas, and so that an organizational change can happen. And that's how it is world over. Many of the places, institutions, the changes have happened because of those courageous leaders. We should promote that.
Last question to you, Ramchandran. Do you feel in your observations and in your experiences that relatively spiritually oriented people tend to be more ethical?
Yes, if you mean
relatively more religiously oriented people, do you feel they are more ethical?
Yeah,
what is your observation?
You tend to, it's a great question, but my feeling and the research I've seen is that if you tend to be spiritually oriented, I feel that they become great ethical leaders. But if it is religiously oriented, I really don't know, because we have examples of people who are on both sides.
Yes,
so,
I understand.
Yeah,
I understand.
Yeah.
It's also nice that you gave that fine distinction, between spiritual orientation and religious orientation. It's very important, because people tend to think, that religious orientation could imply ethical behavior. At least in my experiences, I have observed that cannot be asserted, definitely, and one could run the risk of making a mistake.
Right.
And that risk is higher than 50%. That's my problem.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
I agree with you. Yeah, totally.
That's very correct.
Yeah.
And there are very interesting things also in this space. I've also observed something I'm sharing as more of all the young people. There is a tendency to think that calm and quiet is correct, But actually, I can share with you, there are too many examples And I can tell you, whenever somebody is too calm and quiet, my antennae go up, because I've seen very often calm and quiet people who are very crafty and cunning and cruel, And that's very, very tragic, very tragic. And you don't see the cruelty coming, because of the calm and quiet. So I always keep telling, I've even written about this. Calm and quiet need not be correct. Be very, very careful, Sometimes it can be quite the opposite. Okay. Thank you very much, Ramchandran.
Thank you, sir.
We'll also have a Q&A coming up. I'm sure
Right.
Group Captain is receiving already messages in the chat,
Right.
So I'll move over to Sarada. I met her many, many years ago. She also recalled that we have met many years ago. Of course, she belongs to a group which is very well known in Chennai for ethical practices. The Sanmar Group or the Chemplast Group. I hope I've got the organization correctly, Sarada.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, you have. The
Chemplast
Sanmar Group.
Group.
Yes,
In
Sanmar
fact, I
Group.
must tell you something, Sarada. I am living, my apartment is in Sanmar's first construction project.
SPL Uma, is it?
Yes, yes. I'm very, very happy because I can assert that there was very, very ethical practices. I was very pleasantly surprised by ethical practices in construction.
Thank you.
We all know what all happens in the construction industry, although we may not be experts on the construction industry. So, Sarada, you were, even before we began this program, you were talking of something very interesting and sharing it with Jayadevan and Ramchandran and Vijay Kumar also, about how you sort of test your people and how you introduce your people when they join the organization. And he said one of the first things is to expose them to the code of ethics. So could you share something about the code of ethics of your group with the members of the audience for the benefit of the audience?
Sure, I will. I'll try summarizing it because our ethics, philosophies and policies is actually a book which is about 150 to 200 pages.
Oh.
Essentially, we took KPMG's help in 2002 to articulate in a formal manner what the group has been practicing since Mr. Shankar has ran the Sanmar Group. And there were very many internal memos that were issued, many thoughts that he had put down in his speeches and things like that. So KPMG had two well-renowned people who were heading the ethics practice, and we took their help, and I was lucky to be part of that initiative. So what we did was we conducted sensitization workshops to understand what ethics means to them, and to look at even our vision statement and whether that reflects how important ethics is to us. So we actually changed our vision statement to read what it is today, and its short form actually is where integrity meets excellence. And we are very proud that we were able to create this vision where we said we don't want to do business anyway, we want to do it with integrity. And to come to your question on the ethics manual per se, we have our vision, our guiding principles, and then we have what we call the guiding principles are the philosophies. So the vision is there, the philosophies are there. Now, how does a person understand it on a day-to-day basis? So we have come up with what are called as general business principles. So each general business principle, we illustrate with examples the what one should look at and what one should not be doing. And from these general business principles, we finally, based on the guiding principles and the general business principles, which also has lots of elements of Sanmar's culture and values, we move on to what we call as the code of conduct. And like in the Bible, we have 10 codes of conduct, 10. So that, it is easy to communicate, easy to understand. In fact, when people get a little, awed by this, one of my standard questions to them in my workshops is, if you were to run your own business, tell me what are the things that you would write in your code of conduct for your organization. And the score is never less than 7 out of 10. They believe that 7 or 8 out of 10 of what Sanmar has listed, they would also like to have. So we have the code of conduct. Then we have how do we administer all this? So the Office of the Ombudsman what is the role of the ombudsman, how do you reach out to the ombudsman. And very interestingly, we end this manual with 42 dilemmas, which are things that we picked up in the course of these initial workshops. And what are the alternatives that are available? I mean, because that probably educates us in reducing ethical blindness. So what are the alternatives available? We also tell people that we want you to pick the answer that is appropriate for Sanmar. What is Sanmar's way of doing things? And why does Sanmar want us to do it that way? So this is what the code of the entire ethics manual contains. Now, what we do on the first day a person joins, because we want them on board on this on the first day, is a HR person who's been in the system for a while, does a quick session on the highlights of this. Our ethics manual is available for people to read. So they do a summary of this. And at the end of the session, a declaration is signed by the employee saying that I have understood, I have asked my questions, and I declare that I will abide in letter and spirit. So this is what we do to new employees. But if I might just take 2 minutes, we have also learned a lot of things in this journey from 2002 to today. For example, we've been conducting these ethics training that IOC was also talking about very, very regularly since 2002. Once in a year, once in 2 years, we cover about 2,500 people when we do that across the country. It is one philosophy that covers everybody, because as a group, we believe in commonality of driving things, and our numbers are not as big as IOC's numbers are. So it's easy for us to do that. Now, we realized that we were doing it the standard classroom way. Now, one of my learnings in all this is I think ethical blindness is caused by the fact that it is happening to somebody, not me. So I am ethical. It is somebody else who's not ethical. And therefore, I'm fine. So many a time when we conduct these dipstick tests, which again we have done since 2004, 2 years after articulating it, a dipstick test is nothing but a set of questions which are dilemmas that we have faced in the period in which we conduct, from the last time we conducted the test. We give 4 options for people to choose, give a 1 hour kind of a window for 40 questions, that kind of a thing. And we then score the answers. This is not for giving a score or a test score to anybody, but for us to understand in which business, in which location, in which level are people strong about which concept, in which location, which level are they weak in a concept. So in our reiteration sessions 2 years after the dipstick test, we focus on that and make sure that the next time over when we conduct it, this weakness hopefully moves into an average or into a strength. But we found that while the scores in the dipstick tests were high, transgressions were happening. So what is wrong then? Why is it that people seem to know the right thing, but why is it that they are not acting that way? I think a lot of what Ramchandran said applies here, in that it's not that I don't know, but there are pressures of different kind that I have to act the way I do. So we decided about 5-6 years ago that this classroom technique is not really probably getting through the way we expected it. And we changed our methodology, our pedagogy and all that. But particularly now what we are doing in the last 3-4 years is we have branded this. And we noticed that the younger the crowd, the branding and the visualization and the attractiveness and all that becomes important. And their involvement in this. So we have coined it emotively called ethically ours. So it is not ethics of Sanmar, it is our ethics. So the entire ethics initiative today is branded, whatever we do in that, whether it's communication, whether it's training, whether it is tests, and I'll tell you about some other things we do. It's all under that brand called ethically ours. And we change the entire thing. For example, we start the first hour, it's a full day session. And we started by talking about mythological characters. We pick up 4 characters and talk about the moral, the ethical versus the moral. And we talk of Krishna, Rama, Ravana, and Duryodhana. we talk about 4 of them. And we talk about examples of actions which will fall under each of those boxes. Then we come into letter and spirit, where we say that, okay, now which box would you be? Is this action of yours a Rama action, a Krishna action? Now we have found that over the last 3 years, that resonates well. That am I being a Duryodhana? Am I being a Ravana? That resonates pretty well. And then we start right through that one day, they are involved. We ask them to draw something, visualize the phrases that are there. We have picked up 20 phrases that are important. How do you visualize it? What do you have to say? We give them caselets, ask them to talk about it. Different things that we do there. So at the end of it, 20-25 participants have put their minds together. And finally, we have developed an ethics pledge. So all of us in that session read out the pledge. We have a poster where the pledge is written and all of us sign it to say that we will go by this pledge. So what I'm trying to say is, I think that a lot of understanding of why we do these things has come in because of the emotional angle to this entire communication. And we support it with posters. We support it with a desktop calendar on ethics. We support it with a notebook on ethics, which has different phrases and different statements from our manual, which we expect managers to use and do things. We have ethics communication of different kinds. So we do different things, but as I said, we want to bring that emotive angle so that he thinks for a minute. It hurts him a bit at least when something happens. But have we been extremely successful? I would say better than before, but we have some way to go. Okay, I hope it answers your question.
The struggle goes on, let's put it that way.
Absolutely. And one thing I want to tell all people here is, it is not a one-day event. It is not a one-year event. It is a life's journey.
Absolutely.
And we have to keep at it and not get worried that still things are happening. The only thing is we will try to ensure that as many people as possible understand why our organization wants it done this way.
Very good. 2 things, Sarada.
Yeah.
Would it be possible for you to share a specific example of a code that you follow and a specific example of the dilemma that you share? That'd be very useful to members of the audience. Any one if you can share.
Okay. For example, we say that avoid any conflict of interest.
Okay.
Conflict of interest for us is a very, very important phrase.
Yeah.
Another important phrase, I'll just pick up 2 phrases, which according to me is probably the master of all.
Yeah.
The other one is avoid any semblance of impropriety.
Okay.
Let me take the second one. Mr. Shankar has said this beautifully in the foreword to the ethics manual. What we are saying is that it is not only important that you are ethical, it is equally important for you to be seen to be ethical.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Is that famous Caesar's wife?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And he has said this so well. So we tell people that your action, does it give anybody a doubt that there could be an unethical thing in it or an immoral thing in it? Okay. And that is that avoiding semblance of impropriety. So, for example, we talk about taking gifts. What are token gifts? For example, many organizations have a rupee value on it. Sanmar does not. Now, why? Because what is token to me need not be token to somebody else. Correct. So we don't want to put a rupee value. Yeah. We are saying that a token gift is something, I just come and say, hey, he gave me a calendar, he gave me a diary, and I have no problem. What is not token? If it's a pen which costs $1,000, I might feel a little shy to say, do you know the dealer gave me 1,000 rupees, or a $1,000 pen. It depends on the level. So what we say is, if you believe it is token in nature, don't declare. But if it is not token in nature, you have to send a mail to the ombudsman that I have received this gift. And it's all automated in our portal. So immediately the HR gets to know, the business head gets to know, and then we advise the employee. So if it is not token, The ombudsman evaluates it, and then he or she tells them, give it to the organization. So we have a pool of all these gifts, which then we use for organization purposes. It doesn't go. Similarly, we tell people that, let's say, for example, if I'm taking a session in IIT and I was to be paid an honorarium, I can't tell IIT, don't give me, because you might get offended. So we say, if you accept an honorarium, please donate it to a charity of your choice.
Very nice.
So that there is no temptation. Sanmar doesn't tell you which charity to donate, but it only says it has to go to charity. Our underlying philosophy in that is my only salaried income can be from Sanmar. From nowhere else can I have a salaried income. So these are the things that we explain.
One example of a dilemma, Sarada? Because you said there were 42 that you zeroed in on. Yeah.
No, we have now developed 150.
Oh, beautiful.
Over a period. I think one or two of my colleagues will be in this call, and they have helped us to develop 150 dilemmas. Okay, let's talk about one that is there. Let's say I go to a restaurant. I am a sales engineer. And I go to a restaurant with my family. And it so happens that an important dealer of the company is come for dinner to that restaurant. And let's say he says, he's not eating with us. He's eating separately. I'm eating separately. I'm the one who, oversees the sales and the allocation of, material and things like that. So he says, I'll pick up the tab for you and your family.
Okay.
And I don't know what to do.
Okay.
You should know what to do. You should politely tell him sorry. You should say sorry.
Yeah.
Another example is, in a sales example again, our sales engineers get married. Some of these customers and dealers, etc., come and give them a mixie, a TV, and things like that. So there are cases where we have politely asked him to write saying that thank you for attending my wedding, but as per Sanmar policy, I'm not supposed to accept this, and I'm returning it to you with thanks. But if it is sticky, then we ask the person's boss at a senior level to write.
Okay.
Or if, let us say, another dilemma could be that somebody's dealer's son is getting married, and he says, I'll pick up all the expenses, come for the wedding.
Okay.
So what would you do in such a case?
Okay.
So then we say, please attend the wedding with company's permission. And if we give you the permission, we will pick up the expenses, but he will not pay for anything.
Okay.
I mean, these are very simple examples.
No, I agree. These are good, real examples.
Or let us say I travel to Maytur and, which is one of our plants.
Yes.
And I want to go see the Namakkal Hanuman.
Yeah.
What should I do? Can I take the company car and go to Namakkal and see the Hanuman and come back? The answer is no. If you wish to do that, take the permission of the company and pay for the kilometers that you have traveled. So we phrase it in a manner where a person could be confused. We give 4 options and then say, which one would you choose? So we pick up things that happen every day, because at the end of the day, this blindness is a day-to-day affair. It is not something, at a macro level.
Very correct. Very correct. I mean, sometimes we don't know that we don't know.
Exactly.
That's a problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. Group captain, we may have to spill over a bit. Please do permit that, group captain.
Yeah, please go ahead, sir. Please go ahead.
Because I think it's a very engrossing kind of a discussion.
Yeah, please
and
go ahead.
we've had a very nice thing because Indian Oil comes from our public sector and the Sanmar Group from the private sector. And it's very interesting. And I'm very happy that Sarada was able to share very specific examples of a code and the dilemma, And in fact, Sarada, very interestingly, you read my mind. I was thinking of what will you do when wedding gifts are given, or birthday gifts are given, because these are places where very quietly something can be slipped in. Am I right?
Absolutely.
Where there's no offense also. So these are very difficult.
No, I'll answer that in a different way, Professor. Yeah. There are slightly expensive gifts that people get from bank and all that, where the emblem and the logo is very boldly written. And it cannot be scraped out.
Yes.
Those gifts, we ask them to keep it because they can't, use it for any other purpose. So we apply our mind in every time.
Yeah, I understand. Maybe you'll have to resign saying that, okay, my colleague deserved that gift, so it's all right. I think that's fair enough. As long as there is a corporate decision backing
Yes.
it, I think it's fair enough. Sarada.
Yes.
But
It's
the point
just to
is, it's
lower
very
the
interesting to
temptation
note
of
that
people.
it's very interesting to note that you do have your calibrated yardsticks, as to when do we get into ethics, when do we. I also was very happy that you talked of letter and spirit, because I find, I'm sure friends Jayadevan sir and Dr. Ramchandran will also agree, especially when it comes to government and public sector. What my observation is, letter is often far more important than spirit with which the letter was written. And that's a really funny kind of a situation. And there is a spirit with which people work, and I always claim that it's very difficult to represent by letter what one means in spirit. I hope you understand.
Absolutely.
This point. Very, very difficult.
Very difficult.
That kind of a codification is very difficult, and people have to understand and transcend the letter there. Whenever there are serious ethical conflicts, how do you deal with the spirit more than the letter?
Absolutely.
You can't go by only the letter.
And, if I may share this for a minute, again, Sanmar's philosophy in this is, please do not see which is more important. For us, the letter and the spirit are both important.
That's very good.
That's exactly what you're saying, because there will be occasions when you go by the spirit.
Yes.
And there will be occasions when you go by the letter.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And the final thing that we tell people, and I think Ramchandran was planning to probably say that, is we have this thing about, we are largely located in this state. So we say that tomorrow morning, your photo appears in the front page of the Hindu. Not that the Hindu is very popular now, but anyway, the front page of the Hindu with what you have done. Will your family be proud of you?
Yeah. That's a nice.
So that is sort of what yardstick I need to use. Accept whether it is acceptable or not. Those are some dipsticks that one can use.
The front page of a national daily is a very good yardstick. I can tell you that much. Will your family be proud of you, or will they despise you?
I think he had it in his thing. So
I wanted to present it, but then since I was
no, Ramchandran, you were very ethical in observing time. I can tell you that much. You were very, very good in observing.
Even in instruction, I stick to it.
It's very, very good. And but let's go beyond. I am very confident. I would hypothesize that if we do conduct a survey today about the state of affairs around us, especially in normal citizenship also, I'm very confident that most people would tend to be a little skeptical about the ethical standards prevailing in our citizenry, and especially when dealing with government, because the common refrain of most people is, when I'm dealing with government, there's no way to get things done other than greasing or speed money. Can I just
sure,
Ramchandran, sure, if you have some.
Actually, I have completed 35 years in this organization, and initially I had this belief that public sector organizations are like elephants. They do not move very fast and all these things, and probably some sort of corruption. I could not see any corruption, but then they move very slow. Now when I see those persons individually, of course, some people would have come into the organization because to have a very secure job, but most people I see who have come into organization, inside them, there is some motivation. We call this public service motivation. I mean, they have a motivation to work for the society, but somehow we have used the Western concepts of management by objectives and new methods of using targets and all these things. Those pro-social motivations gets crowded out. If it's basically a leadership failure. If it can be developed as a strategic tool for the publicity movement, I think we can do wonders. That's number one. Number two, you talked about cynicism. I have a slide for that actually. somewhere last year, the Shell, Royal Dutch Shell tweeted. They tweeted some sort of poll they are doing. How can you contribute to the sustenance of environment, betterment of environment? That is, I mean, just that's the way of publicizing, their CSR activity. They wanted to create reputation, and it had hardly some 4,000 likes, and a stream of protests came against that thing, including Greta Thunberg and the U.S. Congress woman, I forgot her name, she was from the Middle East, and many others are questioning Shell. You don't teach us. First of all, you tell us how much you damage the environment. So people sometimes, even though private organization, I'm just not comparing that all of them are not that, but I've seen in many of those private sector organizations like Shell or BP. In fact, there was a huge case of Shell in Nigeria where they were in hand in gloves with the Nigerian military leadership, and the military leadership executed one an NGO leader because Shell was actually damaging the environment. It's a tribe. And the accusation was that Shell could have prevented it. Shell did not do it. So, but they have, if you see, the Shell have a lot of environmental codes, ethic codes, and all these things, but they're not put into action. They just remain in the book. So that is a difficult problem that all of us face.
Yeah, that's exactly what we said as letter and spirit.
Right.
It is there, but in spirit it's violated.
If I may just add, Professor Ganesh.
Sure.
The thing is, it's like that religious versus spiritual.
Yeah.
We tend to stereotype that a religious person is likely to be ethical.
Yeah.
Personally, I have had examples where I will say a big no.
Yeah.
And it's similar to that private sector versus public sector. At the end of the day, I think it is the people there who matter, and their own ethicality that defines the ethical culture of that organization. So many a time we tend to stereotype and make mistakes and draw conclusions when we could just be doing the wrong thing.
Right, exactly.
Do you feel, Captain, you have any questions that have come to you?
We have a number of questions. What we'll do?
Yeah, we can open up now. I think it's a good.
We already got it. I'll just read out a couple of them which has come to me.
Please.
Maybe two questions we'll take. We have got a number of them, and
sure.
we got over 970 people are watching this program.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
And as Mr. Menon said, my president is there watching this, Mr. Subbarao. I'm quite sure he will clear this proposal to set up a MMS Center for Ethics in MMA, and we will really reach out to a large number of people to propagate the message what you have put today. Here's the question which has come from Mr. Raghu from Erode. He says, so many times we falter on ethics due to the work pressure and targets, like you mentioned about NASA example. One such case, how as an employee, I can such a situation, I can come out of such a situation. What is your advice as an employee? And what is also your advice from the management perspective? How can they empower the employee to avoid such situations?
Very nice. Very nice. Who would like to answer this? Ramchandran?
Yeah, I can answer. I mean,
sure, please.
I mean, there are several remedies available at various levels. It is employee level or at the management level. One remedy is for the managers is to shape the environment in favor of ethics. Now, how do we shape the environment? Shape the environment is to include as many discussions as possible. Am I doing this for the right way, or is there any bad intention? Is it going to affect the society? Is it my short-term interest, or is the organization is going to have a long-term advantage out of this? So that sort of shaping the environment with different discussions, as I told, the exhibition of symbols. So this is very important. Exhibition of symbols, seeing the symbols. That is why seeing Gandhi's photo, many people used to have that mind. It comes to the ahimsa and all those things. That is number one. Number two is to stand in somebody else's shoe and then see, what is they going to think if I am doing this activity? Take different shoe. That is a stakeholder concept, right? Take everybody's shoe and see from different perspective. Now, as an employee, make your ethical stand known to others. People tend to believe that if I speak up, then the management will punish. Management will not punish if that speaking up is the right manner. It is, I am doing this for the organization and this may not be the right way to do it. If you present, many a time we fail because we present that in a very rebellious manner, and automatically when you present it as rebellious manner, there is a counter reaction. So we have to avoid that reaction and speak up in a very calm and measured voice that this may not be the right case. So making your ethical stand known to others. I don't, nobody asked me to do unethical activity because my stand is known not to everybody. So that is very important aspect. And then there are other aspects also that move from an intuitive thinking to more system-based cognitive evaluation. Because many times when we intuitively think that something is right, what happens is that intuition is coming from our previous experiences, and many of the time those previous experiences are biased by emotions or our own implicit biases, so we might get a wrong decision. So use more cognitive evaluations, systematic evaluation of the problem, and it is more likely that you can convince the person of those reasons. So there are many. I just taking a few examples. So this is.
I mean, the importance of ethical leadership was very strong in this question. So if the leader is not going to be ethical, it's very difficult down the line. Very difficult down the line.
Just
so
to
the
add
leader
on
has
to
to be
that,
absolutely strong, and everybody should know that the leader has strong grounds and roots in ethical behavior. So
Please go ahead.
to that, Professor Ganesh, I do feel an ethical culture, if you want to really have an ethical culture in the organization, it's faster in case the top leader takes more interest.
Yes.
From down, it going up would take much longer period.
Yes.
Rather than the top leader, if he is ethical, he wants that to get implemented, like what Madam Sarada was saying about their leader. When he is committed to it, it's much easier. When he is committed to his targets will be an ethical target, whether it's a business target or any other target for that matter. It's much more easier for it to be percolated down the line. That's what I always believe.
I mean, that's
Mr.
true,
Ganesh,
sir.
we have a dilemma around this. We do have a dilemma in Sanmar around this. So let me try explaining what we tell in that. The first thing is we tell this person to go and talk to his boss and explain why it is not the right thing to do. So that is the first step. But if still the boss insists, then we say you have an escalation. So go to the boss's boss and tell him along with his boss. And tell him that, listen, this is what I've been asked to do, and I don't think it's the right thing. And I've tried explaining, so I want to bring it to your notice. But if you feel that that would be difficult or the boss may not listen, then you're free to go to your HR person or to go to the ombudsperson of the group and share your dilemma and seek help to resolve it. I'm being very situational in this.
Got it. Actually, if I may slip into Tamil for just a minute, I'll translate it for the benefit of others who don't know Tamil. Yo, niye sariya alla, enna ya kekra. Are you getting it? In English, it's like saying, boss, you're not all right. Why the hell are you questioning me? So that kind of excuse then starts coming up. So the ethical standards of the leader are very critical. I would say that. What's the next question, Vijay?
Sir, I will take the number of things. I'll pick up two questions. I only request for a short answer so that let's close on time. There's a question come from Mr. Joshi from Puducherry.
Yeah.
He says, sir, Madam, Peter Drucker said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. That is to Sarada Jagan.
Culture
But
eats strategy for breakfast.
Breakfast. I
Okay.
also strongly believe culture eats ethics for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So, how do you build an ethical practice in your organization and at culture? And how do you build a culture of ethics in your organization? Like
Very
you
nice.
mentioned, Sarada, and so many system and process put in place. You would like to add anything more to that?
No,
nice
really,
question, actually.
all
Very
I'd
nice
like to
question
tell
from
Mr.
Joshi.
Joshi is that every action of the leaders, and I agree with Mr. Jayadevan, every action of the leader should speak for ethics in both letter and in spirit. And when in every small or big action that happens, people get the right messages and then it becomes culture.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's a short way of saying it.
Absolutely.
True. One last question for the evening. It's Mr. Srinivasan from Coimbatore. He says, sir, I'm heading the purchases department. I'm quite strict, but what I find is a collusive corruption, collusive evasion of ethics that is between the supplier and my team, which is very, very difficult to break. How do I stand on my moral ground to ensure that it is avoided?
Okay. I don't know whether moral is ethical ground is correct, because as I told you, there are subtle differences between morality and ethics.
True.
But I would still accept it's a very good question, because Srinivasan is in a state where he does not want to let down his team. At the same time, he also wants to uphold ethics. So when there are violations, what do you do? Any answers, Ramchandran, from your side? It's a very pointed question.
Yeah. So
here is a manager who has a team where the manager is observing something not going correct.
Right.
So how will the manager ensure a fair play there?
All right. So basically, it appears that he is going through some sort of ethical dilemma.
Yeah.
So now, how do we handle such ethical dilemma?
Yeah.
Now, there is a very famous article by HPR in handling ethical dilemmas, and I found it very attractive.
Okay.
So what they say is that, first of all, you collect as much information as possible. How did it originate?
Yeah.
Collect as much information as possible. Who are the players? And then what are the options available to you to do this activity? In each of these options, what are the harm which is getting to the organization or to the employee, and what are the harms? And then based on your own values, you evaluate each of these strategies, each of these alternatives, and find which is most relevant to your own moral compass. And then you test it. What am I going to do this today? Is it going to stand for is only going to solve today's problem, or is it going to stand for a longer period of time? You test your in a thought experiment, you test the solutions you have come across, and then you will get the most suitable. I mean, it cannot be the perfect, but given the circumstances to solve a dilemma, it could be the most appealing to you. For this is what how they do. It's a very interesting article. You can also check detail by detail, and they have got a structured way of doing this ethical dilemmas, how to handle this. In fact, I tried in few of my dilemmas, and I found it is very helpful. Some solutions which I did not think of earlier, it came out when all this data is evaluated. Most of the time, what we do is just go for intuitive actions. So that may not be correct, because that is not based on database analysis. That is the best way to do this. But still, remember that we can't change the world over one day.
Yes.
My personal philosophy on this is that you can change the world, but from the moment you take over a location and you go to another location, has the ethical culture in that organization improved or it has deteriorated? If it has improved, then I have done something. If it has deteriorated, then it's my fault. It depends upon the personal abilities of the people who drive this thing. That is what I can think of.
In fact, thank you, Captain, for extending time. But I will add one last point. We are living in a country where there is evidence that whistleblowers are more dangerous than the violators. This is something which is observed in our country. it's definitely not a very healthy state of affairs, where whistleblowers are considered very dangerous and violators are saints in comparison with the whistleblowers. We know even cases where whistleblowers have been put to death by some of the violators, you know. So it's a very sad state of affairs. But I hope things will change, because ultimately, as all our speakers have said, Jayadevan, Ramchandran and Sarada, ultimately it is the leader who has to set the tune, because then people will have have a certain code inbuilt in them. And I like Srinivasan's question about culture, because can we build a culture where people say that if you want a truthful and ethical country, visit India, you know? So that I think is a very, very important kind of a culture to build in our own country, in our own circumstances. And I really like Ramchandran's thing. I will quote Gandhiji, be the change that you want to see. It's a wonderful statement that Gandhiji had made, you know. Can we be ethical? We may not be able to change the world overnight, but I'm sure we can change ourselves overnight. It's not very difficult. It is painful. I do agree it's painful. But the point is, do we have enough stuff in us and courage in us and tenacity in us to bear that pain in order to do what is right? So with those words, I will close my inputs, and over to you, Group Captain. Thank you very much for this. And thank you, Jayadevan sir, Ramchandran and Sarada. I think very, very good inputs from you. In fact, I would love to have that code from you, Sarada, sometimes. I hope it's not very confidential or something like that, because it's to deal with ethics.
I'll check that out, please.
Yeah, please. Yeah, thank you very much. It will be fantastic, I'm sure. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor Ganesh. And I think the MMA Forum for Ethics, which will happen, I'm quite sure Sanmar will give those articles and books and things to MMA Center for Forum, which will be a model thing, and which will really propagate this movement along with the support of Mr. Jayadevan and Mr. Menon. We want to make this movement very, very seriously, which Mr. LS, you also agreed to be part of the group, and we must do that, and that's what we want to do. And finally, thank you so much for so many viewers watching this program and for asking so many questions. So sorry we are not able to attend to all your questions. We'll try and doing the next meet, we'll try and attend to all these questions. And as a token of our appreciation, this is what we do, because we are separated by distance, and due to online system, we are not able to really present. Next time when you visit MMA Management Center, we would like to really honor you. On behalf of you, we will present the 400 masks. It is very, very important today. What we do is our team goes around the people, educate them, give them the mask, give them rations, give them vaccination drive, all that we do, our team, because we are able to do this because people like you take your time off and come and talk to us and share your insights. That really inspires each one of us to do many initiatives. This we do on behalf of you, because you have done such a great thing by joining us this evening, sparing your valuable time. Thanks so much, Mr. Jayadevan, for joining us and also facilitating this thought of getting it done. I'm quite sure the center will work very efficiently. I will ensure that at least a couple of events are done and reach.
Yeah, Vijay Kumar, I think this is the first time in our country that such a formal forum is being proposed. Am I correct?
Yes, yeah.
I'm not aware of any such initiative.
It's not there, yeah. It's not there.
I think so. Vijay Kumar, are you there, please?
Sorry, sir, some technical difficulties.
Venkatraman, neenga sollala.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Nice seeing you, Venkatraman.
I think he's got some technical issues, sir. Must have got disconnected.
But do you agree it might well be the first time in our country that such an initiative is being launched?
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely.
Very happy to know that MMA is pioneering it. Damn good. Very, very good, sir.
Yes, sir. At least as far as management associations are concerned, I think this will be the first one. Very correct.
Very nice, sir. Very, very good.
Thank you, Ms. Sarada, Jagan, and Dr. Menon. It's been an excellent session. Yeah. I'm sure, Mr. Jayadevan, I think we'll wait for a few seconds. Maybe Group Captain Vijay will join back.
Yeah, very good. In fact, I had a question also I didn't ask. Maybe I will ask that before we close. Do you have the equivalent of a judiciary in your organizations?
Equivalent of a?
Of a judiciary. Some kind of a, where there are a set of people, group, who will handle ethical issues as a group.
Okay. Yeah, we
conflicts,
do.
etc. You know?
Yeah, we do. See, the ombudsman,
ombudsman
is supposed to ensure that the investigation takes place in an unbiased manner.
Okay.
But there is a group which is the core apex group of the group, where we throw up any such dilemmas or major issues that come up.
Okay.
That comprises the heads of businesses and the heads of corporates,
Okay.
along with Mr. Vijay Shankar and Mr. N. Shankar.
Very, very good.
My
Indian Oil,
apologies, sir.
Jayadevan sir and Ramchandran, do you have an equivalent of a judiciary which will take care of conflicts among people, where things are settled fairly and swiftly?
I will let Mr. Jayadevan to answer that.
In fact, when you really look at it, we do have an auditing system. And then through the auditing system, if you find there are anomalies, there are different ways of taking action departmentally or through some other means to correct those systems.
Okay.
So we consider that as an equivalent of a judiciary, though we do have apprehensions and we do find fault with that system also. But by and large, that is being considered as the last word in any of such cases.
Good, sir. Good.
Sorry, Mr. Ganesh, I got.
I know. Technology let you down a bit.
Technology let me down. And this event will be taken by YouTube. I expect over 20,000 people to watch next few days. That's what we do. And that's the only way we could reach out to a large number of people. And this article, what we'll be publishing, the transcript of the entire discussion in our business mandate, our business mandate reaches almost 80,000 to 1 lakh people. So this is a one way of really reaching out to a large number of people. They'll be with embedded video, so with audio, so that a large number of people can listen to this, get immensely benefited by this initiative. But we'll ensure this initiative is the thing. And I'm quite sure, Professor Ganesh, you are there as a part of our team. Things will really move faster. And thanks again to our distinguished panelists. Thank you, Sarada, Jayadevan, and Menon, and Mr. LSG. As usual, you've been able to bring the best out of the panelists. That is the beauty of typical professor. And you could, the way you take it, I wish I studied under you. I didn't have an opportunity. At least I have the blessing. I'm able to interact with you more and learn quite a lot from you. Thanks so much, and stay safe, stay healthy, and good night till we meet again. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you very much,
Thanks
sir.
a lot
Thank
for
you.
meeting all of you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Subarao.
Good evening, sir.
Good, you could join. You are muted, actually.
You muted, sir.
Yeah. Good event, actually. Yes. We'll activate the center. They are willing to help us. No, we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll make that. The ethics committee and the ethics, and we'll do quite a bit of articles and seminars, conclaves, and all that. I think we must do that. Thank you, Mr. Subarao. Thanks for joining.